Hello, today I will be teaching y'all how to make fursuit irises by using your printer and a fabric mesh of your choice. You will need fabric mesh. What I'm using here is a cross-stitching mesh. You can also use buckram if you want. You will also need an inkjet printer. I haven't tested this on laser printers, but I assume it won't work with a laser printer. So please do not come after me if you use a laser printer and it doesn't turn out okay, is all I'm saying. You will also need a pair of eye blanks. I tend to just buy my eye blanks from other makers because I currently don't have a budget for a 3D printer and I really like having sturdy eye blanks. Now that you have everything you need, take your eye blanks and put them on a piece of paper and trace the eye shape onto the paper. You want to do this with a full piece of paper because we will scan this in order to get the correct shape for the eye as we will print it out. And here you see what I've scanned on my computer screen. I use this as a guide for the sizing and I draw using that guide. Now I'm not gonna teach you how to draw irises because everyone has their unique style and I have my unique style. Here we see that I have two different colors. That's because the character I'm making has heterochromia, which is different colored irises on each eye. Now that you are done with drawing the actual eye shapes, do a test print on a piece of paper. This is so we know that the colors are correct when printing. Now it may not always be exactly to how you had it on the screen, but that's just how printers are sometimes. And we will be using this as a guide for where we want to tape our piece of mesh on. And here I am just marking out how big I want my piece of mesh to be. But we're not gonna tape it onto the paper just yet, as we need to prepare it first. What we're doing next is we're going to lightly paint this white. The reason we do this is so the ink has something to properly stick to. And here I am just placing it down on a piece of foam. This just makes it easier for the holes not to clog up when I paint the mesh white. And you can use any like acrylic paint for this. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. The technique I like to use is to just take a piece of foam, dab it in the paint, and then just dab the paint onto the mesh. This prevents it from also clogging up, because I feel like when you use a brush, it tends to get stuck in like the holes a lot, and the small holes in the mesh is what you see through essentially. So we don't want too much clogging. So this is the part of the recording where I pretend I'm Bob Ross or some ASMR channel that paints, but I'll spare you the details and skip to me having the finished painted mesh. Speaking of drying paint, I like to tape it down while it's drying because this mesh has a tendency to wrinkle when you've used paint on it, so I just like to tape it down while it's drying so it doesn't buckle too much. Once your painted mesh is completely dry, and I mean completely, let it dry, you want to tape it down to your test print, because we will be feeding this paper with mesh pinned on top through the printer. Now I forgot to record this part, but essentially you just want to feed it into the printer like you would normally do with any other print. I recommend using the photo print setting. That way your image will be a lot clearer, and make sure it's the inkjet setting. Now here you can see the finished print result on the mesh. It looks really good, but I actually want to touch it up a little bit more with paint just to give it that extra pop, you know. Now what I like to use for this are paint markers. These specific ones I have right here are Posca pens. They're a little bit more on the pricey fancy side, but if you're only buying 1 or 2 colors, it's not that bad. And here you can see me do a little test on the paper next to me. They are really vibrant. I actually do like them quite a lot. That's not sponsored, by the way, I just really like them. I'm just speeding up the footage so you can just watch how I paint with these. Now here is the finished result. They are glued to the back of the eye blanks with just hot glue. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And also feel free to suggest what other tutorials you would like to see me cover.